Single origin coffees can be intimidating. The labels are filled with strange information about varieties, processing methods, the altitude of the farm, and of course then there's the tasting notes, which can be pretentious, confusing, and often downright ridiculous. Today, I want to give you a few tips on how to get the best out of these coffees and give you a simple, unpretentious guide to single origin coffees. You know, so you can be the coffee snob that looks down on all your instant coffee drinking friends. Hey, it's Josh from the Coffee Science and Education Centre here at 7 Miles. Before we get too far into the details, let's start with a quick definition on what the term single origin actually means. A single origin coffee is simply a coffee that is grown in one location. This contrasts against blends, which are a mix of coffees from more than one place or a mix of different varieties. Blends are great at balancing out the sweetness, the acidity, and the bitterness of different coffees. They help to even out the bumps and provide a more consistent flavor from season to season so you can enjoy your favorite coffee all year round. They are a great choice when you want a reliable, everyday, got your back kind of coffee. While consistency is great, we love single origin coffees for the opposite reason, because we want to experience the unique flavors of where that coffee came from. Single origin coffees can be unashamedly deep and fruity. They might be light and floral or earthy and spicy. Sure, they're not the coffee you take home to meet your mother, but it is fun while it lasts. On a pack of a single origin coffee, you'll normally find a few key pieces of information. Where it was grown, the variety of coffee they grew, the processing method that they used, and some tasting notes from the roaster. Let's start with where it was grown. The location on the label might show you a few different things. It can refer to coffees that come from a whole country, from a particular region, from a specific processing mill or a cooperative, an individual farm, and even a particular lot of coffee on that farm. Not only that, but these details will vary in each of the producing countries. For example, in Ethiopia, it is common for single coffee to come from hundreds of tiny family-run farms. These coffees are then processed and sold as a lot by the local mill. On the other hand, in Brazil, coffee estates are much larger, so it's very typical to see the name of the estate and the family that owns it. It is also common for people to talk about coffees grown in a particular country as if they all taste the same. They'll say Ethiopian coffees are fruity or Indonesian coffees are earthy, things like this. Now there is some truth to these statements, but location isn't the only factor. In fact, I would argue that it's not even the biggest factor on why coffee from a particular country tastes the way that it does. This brings us to the next item, the variety of coffee. You've probably heard of the two main species of coffee, Arabica and Robusta. There are other species of coffee that exist, but these two are by far the most widely grown and known. When we're talking about coffees sold as a single origin, they are almost always a variety of the Arabica species. Within the Arabica species, there are actually many different types of coffee trees. These types are called cultivars or varieties. Each one of these produces slightly different coffee with distinct flavor characteristics. If that's confusing, it might help to think of varieties of apples. If you go to the fruit shop, you can buy Red Delicious, Gala, Fuji, my favorite, the Pink Lady, and about 1,000 others. They're all apples, but each variety has a different taste and texture. So with coffee, you'll see traditional varieties like Typica, Bourbon, and Caturra, which often produce a classic chocolate or caramel type flavor. You might see a variety like the Geisha, which is known for delicate floral flavors, and even native heirloom varieties, which often produce more fruity, tea-like notes. Farmers choose to grow one or more of these varieties not only because they produce different flavors, they also choose them for how well they resist diseases, bug infestations, how much fruit they produce, and a whole lot of other environmental factors. All up, there is way too many varieties to go through them one by one. So for now, all you really need to know is that each variety produces its own distinct flavor, and the more that you're aware of this, as you try them, the more you'll discover the unique differences between them. The next category is processing method, which many roasters and coffee producers argue is the single biggest factor that affects the taste of a particular coffee. When we say processing, we're talking about a method the producer uses to remove the green coffee seeds, what we ordinary humans call the coffee beans, from the sticky layers of fruit flesh. There are two main ways they do this: the washed or wet process and the natural or dry process. With washed coffees, the coffee cherries are allowed to ferment in tanks of water, with the outer layers of the fruit then being washed away. The remaining green beans are then dried and packed ready for shipping. This method typically produces coffee with clean, balanced flavors and plenty of acidity, and is a method traditionally used in Kenya, Colombia, and throughout Central America. With natural coffees, the ripe red coffee cherries are sun-dried whole either on concrete patios or on raised beds over a week or two. The cherries shrivel up and begin to ferment under the hot sun before being milled to remove the soft layers of fruit. The end result is a coffee with distinct fruity and fermented flavors, with increased sweetness and lower acidity than washed coffees. The natural process is commonly used by producers in Africa and Brazil. Natural coffees can be a love-hate relationship for some people. The fermented flavors are not for everyone, and the sun-drying process can be unpredictable, which is a risk for producers. But when it's done right, this method can produce some incredibly fruit bomb coffees that taste absolutely huge. There are a number of other processing methods you'll come across. I won't go through all of these, but one method you'll see a lot is the honey process. The honey process is a variation of the natural processing methods. The cherries are pulped to remove the skin of the fruit and then turned multiple times to aerate them before drying them and sending them off to market. This produces a coffee with the sweetness of a natural processed coffee, but less of those funky, fruity flavors of a traditional natural processed coffee. Next, let's talk about tasting notes. At first glance, they can seem pretty pretentious. I mean, most people don't go around describing their favorite coffee as basmati rice or as jasmine. Ordinary coffee drinkers might describe a coffee they like as smooth or strong, or perhaps something a little bit more specific like nutty or chocolatey. So why do professionals use these foreign terms to describe flavor? No, it's not because coffee roasters are self-absorbed snobs. Well, not all of them. But the reason we use these specific terms is thanks to the official Coffee Tasters flavor wheel. The flavor wheel is an industry standard tool that professional coffee tasters use to describe specific nuances of flavor in coffee. Here's how it works. You start with the middle layer. This describes the broad categories of flavor that you can expect to find in coffees like fruity, sour, sweet, and nutty. Once you've identified the broad category of flavor that you're tasting, you can then move out to the next layer. So if we're picking up some fruity flavors, we can then decide if those flavor notes taste more like berries, dried fruit, citrus, or something completely different. If you dare, we can then go to the outer layer, which is more specific again. So perhaps the berry note that we're tasting tastes more like blackberry. And so we add that as one of our flavor descriptors. Of course, it usually takes some time and practice to pick up some more subtle nuances like this. But in most coffees, there are many different notes that you can pick out once you've trained your palate. A great way to educate yourself is to go along to coffee tasting. Often this is called a coffee cupping or just a cupping. Coffee roasters often make these available to the public, and there is no better way to try a diverse range of coffees than side by side. This is where you're really going to pick up the differences. Another option is to go to a cafe that offers different single origin coffees, order one and ask the barista about it. Most baristas love nothing more than talking coffee with someone that really does appreciate it. So we've got our bag of fresh single origin coffee. How do we get the best out of it? Here's a few quick tips to help you get good results. First, try it without milk. Single origin coffees are typically roasted lighter than a blend. As a coffee is roasted darker, the roasted flavors start becoming more dominant and the nuances of that coffee's origin start to become a little bit more muted. Now that's not to say that you can't add milk if you want to, but with these lighter roasts, the milk is going to cover up some of those subtle nuances of the coffee just from the simple fats and sugars in it. And you'll miss out on some of that magic that you're paying that extra for. Next, check the recommended brewing information. The roaster often has specific brewing methods in mind when they roast a coffee. Often they'll even include brewing recommendations and a guide on the pack. Professional coffee tasters use a process called cupping to evaluate the coffee. A French press, or a coffee plunger as we call it in Australia, produces a similar style of coffee. This method is a great place to start, but other brewing methods like the pour over filter, an AeroPress, or a Chemex are a great way to bring out the individual characteristics of these coffees. Of course, you can also make espresso with single origin coffees. In fact, some of the roasters will also offer a slightly darker espresso roast designed to suit espresso brewing. So if you're used to working with an espresso blend, you will often find that you need to use a slightly different brew ratio to get the best results. Often, the roaster will provide a suggested espresso recipe, which is a good starting point for getting a balanced flavor for each individual origin. Just bear in mind that every espresso setup is different. Different grinders, filter baskets, water chemistry, and more will affect the way that your espresso extracts. So use these recipes as a starting point and then adjust by taste from there. Alright, that is our introduction to single origin coffees. I am very partial to naturals myself and the fruity types of coffee, but let me know down below what is your favorite single origin coffee that you've ever tasted. I've had some pretty wild ones. But until next time, catch you around.